in RAP, we do have transactional application, and transactional application base, I mean, the OData service which support transactional behavior can be generated in two ways. One, I can say managed RAP implementation. And one, we can call it as an unmanaged RAP implementation. So we'll start with something called managed. Okay. So I'll just show you one quick diagram for that. Okay. So each of the RAP architecture has its own set of life cycle. Okay. I can say it is having its own set of life cycle methods. So what all things a RAP managed architecture contain, or in layman's term, what is a manage? Okay. So I'll just give you a simple definition. Maybe it's not some bookish information. It's something that I experienced. So maybe I guess it should help you and grasp, I can say the context, like why it is called managed and why it is called unmanaged. When it called managed, when it calls unmanaged, the question would be who. I mean, who is managing? I can say who is managing all the transactional calls implementations. Okay, so the question would be that who is managing all the transactional calls implementation? So if the answer to this question is standard SAP, I mean, we are not required to do any sort of logic writing to do this, then it is called manage. Now, all those standard calls that we are talking about can be nothing but all the basic REST API behaviors, or I can say REST API functionalities. For example, be it a create, a read, update, delete, and query. So who is going to handle, or I can say who is going to provide the output whenever I am receiving a create call? Now, upon create call, my expectation will be that a record will be created. So am I required to write any specific logic other than the business logic, because each business has its own set of logic? So definitely business logic is something that you would be writing, but am I required to write any sort of such specific logic for the record to get created into the system at the ABAP layer? If the answer is no, it means it's a managed implementation. Okay. Sorry, I will. Okay, I'll mute all of us. Okay, so in case you have any queries, please feel free to just to avoid any sort of disturbance. Okay, another point is unmanaged. So in this case as well, the question will be same, that who is going to manage all the transactional behavior. But in this case, I can say if the answer is the application developer, okay, then it means it's a unmanaged. Okay, simple. It's a simple thing. Okay, so for example, if I do have a travel table in which I do have something called travel date. Okay, so when I do have a travel date, simple thing is if my user is having a very nice Fiori screen on his device, if he's entering the information in a travel date, okay, and number of other information as well, and the moment he's saying create, then upon clicking of this create button, a record should get created in my travel tables. As simple as that. So in case of a managed rep application, system itself will take care of this, I can say functionality. You are not required to write any logic in order for the system to insert the data into the database table, update the data into database table, delete, read, or query. You are not required to write any ABAP logic. I am not saying anything. I mean, definitely we have to prepare the skeleton at least, but you are not required to write any ABAP logic is not required for, I can say, basic transactional behavior. Okay, so there is a meaning of unmanaged. In case of unmanaged, yeah, we'll need a web logic which will be writing. So there will be some new language as well. We'll be learning called EML, called entity manipulation language. This is something we'll be learning, I guess, in some time. So first we'll start with managed. We'll try to generate a wrap service from the scratch, using which we should be able to generate the transactional behavior of an application. So definitely, I guess, as we generated the read-only application, in this case as well, we'll start with a travel, which will be a root node, and there will be a booking, which will be a um, child node for that. Okay, so using this, we'll generate our first something called a data model. Our very first step. Okay, once we do have the data model, my another step, okay, will be that we'll be generating, I can say at end, definitely the service over here, service definition and service binding. But in between, in order for us to have the managed implementation, we will inherit, or I can say we will generate the behavior definition and behavior projection. So this behavior definition and projection will be responsible. This guys will be responsible for transactional behavior. Okay, so now if we just go over here and just see that particular nice screenshot, maybe you should get a bit of idea over here. So if you see the development flow for managed scenario, so this is where we are starting with. We'll have the definition, I can say our data model generated, and service binding and definition is something we'll also be generating. But we'll enrich this particular data model with the behavior definition and projection, which will play a mediator role. And as a result of it, we'll see a transactional behavior getting generated. Okay, so this is something that we'll be doing. In case needed, additionally, we'll also be writing a ABAP code for that. Okay, so let's just start with that. So I just go here. Yeah. Okay, so now I'll just close mostly all the things. So at least we are very clear on what we are actually going to do. Okay, so let's just do one thing. Okay, let's wait for a minute. Okay, let's just start with at least a package. So at least we'll have all the objects that we are going to generate for the managed scenario in a single package, and going forward, we'll be able to visualize what all things we generated. Okay, so I'll just say, yeah, set URP manage app application. Okay, we'll be using it for the development purpose. Maybe there is a component called is that local. This is what ideally we have been provided. Okay, let's just use the same transport request over here. So we are starting from very scratch. We have our first package in the system, and into which we'll be generating and creating all the objects for the managed app behavior. So I'll just copy this, add this in my favorite package. Okay, So we are ready. So now our very first and foremost thing over here will be that we are willing to generate, I can say, travel application over here. Okay, so let's just do one thing. So let's just visualize the table that we are going to use as a part of the data source for us. In addition, the one into which we are going to place the entries as well, correct? Because when I say I am going to place the entries into it, it means those will be the table which will behave as a, I can say, data centers for me as well. So these are the DMO travel. These one of the table that we are going to use. So let's just start with this. Let's just try creating the, yeah. So there is a DMO travel M. So this is going to be my first and foremost table for that. So always follow certain scenarios. So as I mentioned, I guess we learned VDM, right? So the first and foremost thing should be that you are creating interface views. Then you are creating R views. These are the one which will be responsible for transactional behaviors. And the third thing, or I can say very important thing over here is the C view, which are the consumption. Now the interface views that we are going to create should at least get the data from the database table. So at least we will be knowing what all things it would need. Okay, so for example, if I just start from the scratch, I'll just go and start creating my first view. Okay, here I'll just go, I'll just copy this name and we'll use a keyword called TP. So that is the keyword that you will find in most of the views generated by the standard as well. So the TP means transactional processing. Okay, so that's something that you will see in any of the views which are uh, uh, going to, I guess, carry the transactional behavior logic, or I can say on which the behaviors will be created in a layman term. Okay, so I'll just simply go over here and just say create a core data services. Core data services. I'll just say CDS where it is. So here I do have a data definition. So first thing, your interface views, what it should be. Your interface view should be your entity. Okay. So I'll just say ZI travel for my transactional processing app. Okay. So I'll just say ZI travel, but let's just say this for my managed scenario. I can say travel view for manage scenario because we are going to implement multiple scenarios, manage, unmanaged, and manage is also having two more flavor, unmanaged, save, and additional save. Okay, someone has already created. So let's just follow our own convention over here that said EO is for EDU ocean. So I guess that will be our own. I don't see anyone else would be using that. Okay, other than us. Okay, so here we'll be creating something called defined view entity. Remember, whenever you are consuming a table, you are going to make it reusable, never make it root, because a root is a component of a business hierarchy, business object node hierarchy. So if you're going to create a root, no one other than you will be able to use it. Okay, so I'll just say define view entity. So at least it would become reusable. So going forward, if I'm going to develop an unmanaged application as well, then also I can reuse this. Okay. So here in this case, the simplest thing which I mentioned over here is that I'll be copying this over here and I'll just specify certain thing. I'll just say MO travel over here. Okay. Now I'll just enter all these fields which I had. Okay. So it just generated certain set of fields for me. Now, okay. So now the thing that we are going to do over here is we would be required to specify certain thing in order for the at least in order for the system to recognize what is the purpose of each and every field. Okay, so first thing, for example, the booking fee over here, right? So booking fee is a amount, so which can be 1,000, 100, it can be varying from a number. But When I say a booking fee, what will it be what will be counted in, whether it will be US dollar or INR or whatever it would be. For that, we have certain semantics. So first thing is you would be generating interface views and enriching it with the semantics annotation. So I'll just say semantics over here. Okay, and in the semantics, what it is, whether it's amount or currency, so quantity. So I'll just say it's an amount. Okay, so if it's an amount, I'll just write AM. Oh, it is taking some time. Yeah, over here. Amount, and then we do have a currency code. Okay, so here the currency code in my case will be something called currency code. So here I just copy and paste it over here. Okay, likewise, we have multiple of them. So I'll just copy and paste it because I do have single currency code, which I want to relate to each one of them. First thing. Second, while you are going with a managed scenario, all we want is that while I'm creating an entry should get created into my database table. It means I need some sort of recognition on who created the entry, when created the entry. Okay. So definitely at ABAP layer, we do have a system variables. We can use it. But here we are trying to reduce the number of ABAP line of code we use, right? And that's the reason for each and every such field, we would be providing some semantics. Okay. So for example, I'll just say semantic. Okay. And here we'll say what is the semantics is for. So I'll just say it's for user. Okay, and here I'll just say this is my created by person, the person who is going to create it. So it means the moment a record is getting inserted into the database table, the field will get the user ID from your session, the current user information. Okay, so this is something that system will get automatically. Another thing, created at. So whenever your entry is getting created, we want that the system's date and time information should also be stored over here, saying like when this record was created. So I'll just say created at. So these are all built-in annotation, which gives the semantics, the purpose of each and every field that you are carrying. Okay, same goes over here. So for example, if I just say last change at, here it's not definitely the created at for sure, but I would have something called the current user's last change it. So there are two things we would be discussing what it is. For now, let's just go with local instance last change at, because the last change at will come into picture when we want a global information. And what does it mean? For example, if I do have a draft enable application, that's something we'll also be learning. At that point in time, last change at is also required. So currently we'll just go with the local last change at. Okay. Another thing, last change by. So I'll just go over here and just say semantic user. And we'll just say, sorry, it would be a change by in this case. Last change by, I guess that's what we can call it as, right? Okay, so we'll just generate this view, we'll activate this. So this will become our one of the data source that we'll be using going forward in my transactional processing application. Okay, same way we would also need another view. And what that another view will be called? That another view will be nothing but your booking view. Okay, so we'll also start creating something called booking view in this case. So I'll just go over here and just say I want another view. I'll just go ahead and create one more. Data definition. Again, this will be my interface view, ZI, I'll just say EO, and I'll just say booking M. I'll just say booking view or manage M. Next. Next, and we'll create again a view entity. Okay. So now I'll just go over here and just say that this time I am interested in create another view, but here this time my data source. So I'll just go in this booking. I'll just say this time my data source will be booking. So I guess we do have another table which are on the same line. So maybe system has two of such table, I guess. That's already there. Let's just try using that. Booking M, yeah. So ultimately, there are certain tables which are already created with the data pre-filled. So at least we can use it for certain purpose. So maybe this M is having some sort of a data that we already need, already maintain. Okay, so I'll just use it over here, booking M. Okay, insert. Oh, damn it. What's going wrong? Why it is not suggesting me to select all the fields? It's weird. Oh, I guess did we just specified one slash slash? I guess we just missed one slash, which is this one. Now we do have the fields. Okay. So I guess we just typed the name of the table wrong. That's the reason. Okay. So now I guess you know, right, what we have to specify over here. So in this particular case as well, we have to specify a couple of things. So first thing we will be specifying is the information that's semantics.amount over here. Okay, and we'll say that what is the currency code for this. So here, if I just say control space, you will get the list of field. I'll just say currency code. Very sweet thing. Now I'll just go over here and I'll just specify last change at, and here I'll simply specify semantics over here. And here I want to again specify some system date time, but we want the system to do that thing for you. So I'll just say simply local last change at. Okay, so we do have two views created. So going forward, we won't be considering directly using the table, but instead, whenever we need the data, we'll be using the views. Whenever we want to place the data back, then we'll be using the table. So there is a base rule. Whenever you need the data, whenever you want to query the data, use the views. Whenever you want to push the data back, use the database tables. Okay, so these are first and foremost thing you should be knowing. Now, if I just try to check the data, if there are any already available as a part of this view, we should be able to get very nice information over here. Okay, so we have a good amount of data over here, and I guess maybe travel is something that we already checked some time back, so I am not going into that details right now. Okay, so these are the two things that we generated, the base views along with the semantics. Now, next step for us will be to give some sort of a transactional behavior to it. Okay, so I we created interface views within certain property, which is a
Sumit, your voice is breaking.
okay, just a sec. Hello. Is it is it for everyone? Is it breaking for everyone? Is it clear? Can you please confirm?
Yeah, now it's fine, I think.
Yes,
Okay.
Earlier
Sumit,
it
sound
was
is
like,
okay.
Okay, maybe there will be some issues with the earphone. Sorry. Let's see. I'll try to keep it as close to my mouth as I can. Okay. Don't worry. Yeah, but in case you feel you are not getting something which I am trying to convey, please feel free to ask. Don't worry. Okay. So another thing. So now let's just move one more step forward. So interface view we generated, the purpose was to get directly the data from table and provide semantic annotations. So this is the purpose of your normal views. Okay. Now there comes the R view. R views are mainly for transactional processing purpose, whose data source will be interface views. So that is something that we are going to generate. So I'll just simply say I want to generate a R view. But remember, we created a views for the read-only application as well, where we were giving the information of like who is the parent, who is the child. So here is that particular time. Okay, we have to provide the relationship saying who is the parent, who is the child, and then only your system will be able to get those informations. So I'll just simply go over here and we'll say view we want to create. I'll just say data definition. Okay, now I'll just simply say Z R for the R view. For naming convention, let's just follow EO. I'll just say travel view, but this time we are going with the transactional processing. So I'll just say travel view manage TP view. So these are TP view means for the purpose of transactional processing. I'll just go next. Next over here. And now if you see, we do have two options, whether we want to define the root or whether we want to define some sort of a non-root entity. So here we want root. So I'll just say root and we'll just say finish. So I guess it seems that BTP server is taking some time today. Okay, that's why maybe it's taking some time in order for the code and everything to get generated. Okay, now in this case, we'll specify each and every component we need, but let's just first observe. So if you see, we are getting, in case of a root view, you will always get limited amount of information, the authorization and just the end user. Okay. Other than that, rest of the thing will not be there in the case of a root view entity. First. Second, if you just go over here, you have to provide a data source. So for example, if I just say my data source in this case will be this set EO, EO travel. So I'll just provide this. Then I'll just go over here and I'll just add all the fields that I had. So it just generated this and I'll just comment out this because we don't need this for now. And I'll just add a comma. I'll just remove a comma. Okay, so we just generated a root view. Now we'll generate a non-root view for the booking as well. And then we have to generate the parent-child relationship in between. I'll just go over here and I'll just try out. I can say data definition. I'll just say booking, and this is for my transactional processing purpose. So I'll just say booking view for manage, but it's a TP view. Let's just use the same transport over here. Let's just go next. And here we will be using a view entity. Now, why is that the case? I hope you remember. Okay, I guess once this gets generated, I'll just show you the same diagram we had seen earlier. I can say we had created earlier. I can say instead. Okay, so if you just go over here, you will see that as per what we discussed. Whenever we are generating a application, a BO, business objects should be in place, right? So business object allows us providing all the behaviors. Okay, so in order for us to generate a business object, the important things are the node, and each node has its own role. So for example, if I say travel, then it can be a route because on which each and every information is being iterated. A travel can have multiple bookings. So it means it would be the child of my travel. Okay. And travel will have a parent as well as it will be the root for this as well. So whenever you are generating a business object, there how many root view it can have? It can have multiple parent, it can have multiple child, but root will always be one. So if for an application, for example, if you are defining my root view is travel, booking cannot be a root view going forward. suppose that, okay, because anyway booking is going to have a parent, then booking cannot be a root. Okay, so that is how we are going to define the significance, or I can say the role of each and every view we are going to create. So that's why we generated a view entity and not the root view entity in this case. Okay, so I'll just say I'm going over here, data source is going to be my data source over here. Paste it, and now I'll just add all the elements I had. Okay, now while you are having a separate view by yourself, the important advantage that you get is that if you see I at the booking layer, right? Okay, over here we generated a view, and here from zero we are giving our own set of annotation which are specific to our application, right? So we know what is the purpose of each and every field. So if we are already provided the semantics at the R view layer, we are not required to do that. And if you want to ignore doing that, all you have to do is you have to just hide, or I can say remove this annotation called ignore metadata extension, or you have to set it to false. So I'll just remove this for now. So the moment you say ignore propagated annotation, the annotation which are already specified at the base view layer, data source layer, will be propagated to this view as well. So your system will get those annotation out directly. So it will be knowing what is the purpose of each and every field you specified. Okay, so I'll just activate this view also. Now, here comes the parent-child relationship. So we created the view, but now we have to specify who is the child of this root, right? So we have to specify composition. Okay, you will be specifying composition of what? So I'll just say it will be a composition of this particular view. Remember, at each layer, wherever you are specifying composition, you have to specify the same layer view. For example, if I was doing it at the I layer, you have to specify the view which are at I layer. If you are doing it at the root level, R layer, you should be specifying it at the R layer as well. If you are defining a composition at the C layer, composition layer, then you have to define the view which are type of C. Okay, so that's the architecture, a data model that you should be generating. So here I'll just say composition of this particular view, and I want to name it out as bookings. Okay, so this becomes my bookings. Now, how many bookings can a travel contain? So if it's a fresh travel, it can have a 0 as well as it can have n number of bookings possible. Okay, so I'll just write it as 0 to start. Now, in order for this view to get activated, if you see I'm getting an error saying that child entity does not have a two parent association on this view. Okay, and the booking list, this association must be included in the association list. So I'll just copy this first and I'll just add it over here. So at least that particular thing is gone. So this is how you should ideally be doing the development. Try to get rid of any possible errors. So here another thing is that it should have a two parent association specified. Okay, so if I want to specify two parent association, you will simply go in your child view over here, and then you will say association to parent on this view. So I'll just go over here and simply say association to parent. Okay, and here we'll specify the view and we can name it as, so for example, I'll just say travel. So travel is the association which is parent for this. Then we'll say on dollar projection, and here we'll specify so how the data should be considered. So I'll just say travel ID of this particular projection view, which is this one, okay, should be equal to my underscore travel view, whichever I have. It also does have some primary key called travel ID. So this is something that you should be specifying. Okay, now I have to expose this particular association as well. I just save this. Now, as you can see, now this error converted into warning that the entity does not have a composition. Actually, it does have, but we have not activated that. And these also having a warning, these having an error. So let's just do one thing. Let's just activate both of them at the same time. So internal dependency is resolved. So I'll just say activate all. If you see the button just beside the activate, there is something called activate all. Select that and just say activate. So we now do have a very nice parent-child relationship over here, which says that, okay, I do have a travel, which is a root, and I do have this, which is a child of it. Okay. Now, next thing which will come into picture is, okay, if I just go over here, then there are two things. We can generate the behavior and we can also generate the scope. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll generate a first exposure of it. Okay. We'll generate how we can expose this. So definitely these are still our views. Okay. So in order for us to actually expose this, we need some sort of a C views on top of this. So we'll generate a C view which will be exposing this, and those views, what we call it as? We call it as a projection view. So we'll generate those projection views over here. I'll just say new over here. Okay. Now we'll have a travel view. Projection view for my managed scenario. But a root will always be a root. Okay, so if it's a travel, definitely our expectation will be that it's a root view entity. Okay, so now if I just go over here, you have to specify the data source. So for C view, the data source will be R view. So I'll just copy this over here and I'll just paste it over here. But this case, as it's a C view, we should not have a select from. So I'll just remove each and everything I do have over here. Instead, I'll just say as projection on, and here I'll specify the view name. And here I'll just remove each and everything I had, and I'll just say control space, and I'll insert each and everything. Now, I do have a view which is there for the purpose of providing us the actual applications and user consumption. It means it's a provider and which also has a transactional capability. So I'll just say provider contract transactional. It will be a query. Okay, so what is the difference? That's something we'll be seeing practically in some time. So if I say provider contract transactional query, this is one. Another view we'll also need for the booking as well. So I'll just go over here and I'll just create one more C view over here. I'll just copy this and I'll just generate. I'll just go new. Okay, so in this case as well, we'll just say that CO, EO, booking. I'll just say booking, and it will be my projection view or my managed scenario. And this will be a view entity. It won't be a root view. Okay, so now again, as it's a C view, this will be again my projection view. Here I should not be specifying any sort of a select. Instead, it should be a projection. So I'll just remove this. And here I'll just say as projection on. And here I'll simply specify my view. I guess I already copied. That's good. Insert all element. I do have this format. And here again, we are the only one who specified all this annotation. So we don't want it to be ignored. Instead, we want it to be flowed, propagated, we can say. Okay, so we do have two views now. Now, one more thing. So in our view, we used to specify that parent layer composition in child, or I can say in the C layer. What we'll be doing is we have to specify a couple of things. So here, along with the bookings, you would be saying that where I should redirect this call to. So I'll just say redirect it to composition child. And here you would be specifying the child name of it. So there is a child view for that. Copy this. Okay. And now same goes over here. So in case of a parent as well. Okay. So I'll just copy this name and here you would be specifying in the booking view that this is being redirected to my parent. Okay. So just saving this. Let's see. So it just say could not find this because we have not activated that, and same goes over here. The system won't be able to find this. But now if I just activate both of them at the same time, we should have this also available. So I'll just activate all group and activate this. So at least we'll have the CDS layering ready. Okay. Now next thing is that we would be generating some sort of a behavior for that. Okay, so how far we are? So we generated CDS data model, we generated data projection for that as well. Let's just do one thing. Let's just go in the flow that we created. So at least we'll have this expose. Okay, and post which let's just try to enrich and see how the read-only application is getting converted into a transactional one. So we'll generate service definition and binding. Once it's generated, next thing we'll see is the moment we add the behavior to it, we'll see the all the create, update, delete functionality started getting appear. Okay, over here. So I'll just go over here and I'll simply say, just generate a service definition over here. I'll just go over here, new. Service definition. Next. So here we are defining the scope of our application, but this time our application is a wrap application. So I'll wrap transactional application. So I'll just say ZUI travel manage. Okay. I can say service for the service. Travel manage. Many a time you would also see that people are avoiding using this SRV. Reason being, when you are generating a gateway service, it automatically adds this SRV. So many a time it also behaves as a placeholder for us to recognize if there are any gateway based services. If you are using SRV, many a time that denotes that. So if you want, you can instead use service. So there is also maybe a distinction you can keep. So I'll just say travel managed service. And then we'll just go next. And we would define a service. And then we have to define the scope of it. So each time our scope will be the views that we created, but whatever we want to expose. So for example, I want to expose this and I'll just say travel and expose this as a booking. So this just generated our service definition. Okay. So we just define the scope that our application will be generating this to information. I'll just activate this. Now, the last thing is that we would like to expose this. So there are two ways. Either you can just generate a service binding, give the name, or you can also go over here and just simply say, right click over here and you can just generate a new service binding. try to have a habit of keeping the same name. So it would be easy for you to recognize. So I'll just generate a data V2. I can say manage travel service. Okay, so we do have a service generated, but it's not published. For you to publish it, you have to activate it first. So I'll just activate this. So it's activated and you are able to see a button called publish. The moment you publish, it generates the service artifacts and you should be able to see the two of its block. I mean, two of the information that we expose, travel and the booking. Now, here onwards, what we are going to do is, so this seems to be the same as that of the read-only flow. And that was my main emphasis. I want to show you that the application that we are going to do over here, we are not going to change any of this flow. Instead, we are going to enrich the data model itself with the behavior. So this flow will look like same as that of the read-only behavior. So if I just switch over here, you will see that, okay, it's the same one. There is no difference when you are going with the read-only application. Instead, you are going to enrich your CDS data models over here with the behavior. So anything and everything you are going to specify will be at this layer. Even if we are providing the transactional capability, we are not going to change anything on my service layer. It's always at the CDS layers where you are going to enrich the behaviors. Okay. So I guess it's publishing the service. Maybe let it take its sweet time. But for the CDS layering, this is how the layering should be. I mean, definitely you can switch, I can say skip some of the portion. Many a time you will also see people combining these two things. But in any of the standard application you observe, this will be the layering. I guess they'll always go with the separate layering. But if you want, you can combine these two, but you will never be able to combine these two particular views because here you would be generating the definition and here you would be generating the projection, and definition and projection has two different syntaxes. At view layer it is select, and projection view layer it is projection. So these two layers cannot be combined. They need, I guess there needs to be two separate layers for that. But yeah, these two can still be combined, but it's better to segregate those so it's easy to manage. Okay, that's how we ideally design it. So I guess once it's published, we'll just have a preview and we'll just switch back to the behavior. But in case you have any doubt, meanwhile, okay, feel free to unmute. Okay, so I guess we do have the service also published. We'll just quickly have a preview. We don't have any metadata extension and maybe we would be doing it very later. Okay, I guess currently all we need is we just want to see the service. We just want to see the initial preview of the application, how it is looking alike. Does it have any sort of create, update, delete functionality? For now, till the time we did not specify anything. That's our main intention. Okay, so I guess we don't have any buttons as such. Yeah, we'll be able to see the columns and we'll be able to see the data for sure. But we won't have any buttons which says, okay, please create or delete any information you want. No, that's not the case. Okay, so it's a plain read-only application we generated. Okay, so I'll just close that browser and now I'll just go back to my entity. Okay, now what we'll do is we have all the things that we need over here available very nicely over here. So I'll just close all the things in order for us to remove any confusion because